welcome you all to the first event. This is a recurring event that will be happening around once a week, where we will be dealing with the different issues surrounding modern love. I'll also be telling a little more about my upcoming novel, One Woman, Three Men, that will come out in the States in March 2016. So welcome to this first event.
Pauline, let's start by talking about love and why we're here.
All right, yeah. Well, I think we have a big need for modern love in our present society because we have many double standards in our love life. Those double standards come from the fact that our notion of love is something that is put into our minds and hearts without us necessarily making a conscious decision about it. And for me, it's important that we become more conscious about what we're actually striving to achieve, because the more we strive to achieve something that's unclear, the less likely we are to succeed, and the more frustrations actually come from it. So for me, modern love is very much about becoming conscious of what you want in your love life, and then start to make that happen, instead of living a love life that is lived according to somebody else inconcrete or unconcrete expectations.
Pauline, one of the things we talked about just in terms of it being a new year is if you are used to a old love model, how with this new year, new month, do you start the process of opening yourself even to modern love? You might understand what it is, but in my everyday life, how do I open myself to actually having modern love?
Well, it all actually starts by a decision, because when you want to change some of the ways you think about things, it doesn't happen like overnight. So you need to decide, I want to get a better love life, or I want to improve my present love life. I want to really take this step into modern love because I can be myself much more in these terms. And then once you've taken that decision, you're actually starting on your own personal love quest. And that it's a good idea to start that, once a new year is starting and we all have things that we would like to probably change, maybe big things or smaller things, but things that you want to change, it's a good idea to do that when a new year starts. So I think 2016 is really a good year to start your personal love quest. And then be prepared for it to last a couple of months, 2-3 months. And then over that period, you need to work on it regularly. And then after 2-3 months, I'm sure I can guarantee you that you will see some changes.
Sure. When you're starting your personal love quest, you are saying this could take 2 to 3 months?
Yeah, because it's first when you want to look at what your own ideas about love are, it's most likely that you will write down on a piece of paper what other people have told you love is. It's not very often that you're able to just sit down and say, no, I'm completely aware of what I want, I'm just not getting it. If you are aware of what you want, congratulations, then you need to find some tools that help you get what you want. And I can also help you with that. But first of all, for most people, it will be a good idea to focus on being more concrete about what you really want. So sit down with a piece of paper and think about, okay, what kind of relationship around me do I like? I mean, some of my friends have a relationship where I think that's the kind of life I want? Or what are some of the things that my parents had in their relationship that I would like to actually copy in my love life? You may also have read some books about something, or you may have a good friend, a man or a woman that you're talking with these things about. All of it is steps that you take in order to make it quite concrete what it is that you are dreaming of. And since there are many influences from many different sources, it's a good idea to write such a list over maybe 1 or 2 weeks. You know, you start by writing something, then you let it sit, then you write something more, let it sit, write something more. And then after a couple of weeks, you can look at it and then you can say, okay, all of this sounds great. And does it also feel great? Do I really feel that this is the type of love life I would dream of having? You can do this exercise whether you're single or you're in a relationship. If you're single, you will also, whether you're single or not, you can also look back if you've had previous relationships before this one. And then you can define in what manner that was good. You can also have a negative list on the side indicating the things that were not good. But try not to get too deep into all the things that didn't work. Because if you want to make things happen in a positive way towards a new love life that you're dreaming of, you need to focus on the positive aspects. Sometimes it can clear your mind to have a negative list and just write it down and then leave that aside. So what you do is you write these things down, and then you need to sit with yourself and feel, is this really what I'm looking for? Is this the kind of man I'm looking for if you're single? Is this the kind of relationship I would like with my present partner? So that's the first step. The second step is to sit down with another piece of paper, and then you describe the kind of partner that you're dreaming of. Once again, you can do it as a single or part of a couple, but what are some of the traits that you really appreciate in a partner? You can make a very long list. Like when I was single some years back, when I started living with my 3-men model, I was really annoyed that I was trying to fill out a profile on a dating site, and I was annoyed that I had to answer so many questions. So I said to myself, okay, maybe I can just live without a man. It would be so much easier if I could just live by myself. But I was frustrated, love frustrated, so there was a reason why I had joined this site. So therefore I said to myself, okay, what do I actually need a man for? What can I do with a man? What am I interested in doing together with a man? And then I started making this list, and I thought maybe I would have 3 to 4 points. And then I would have to look at these points and say, okay, can I live without this or can't I? But, my list ended up with having 26 different areas that I enjoyed doing together with a man. And that's just too many areas for me to live without a man. So then I also looked at the 26 areas, because I know that if you're on a dating site or if you're out to meet somebody, you're not going to meet anybody if you have 26 points that you want them to live up to. That's completely impossible. I would never live up to 26 points that somebody else made up. But it was a very good compass that I could use in order to find, to go looking for a partner.
And Pauline, when people come to you, whether it's for coaching or just for a new direction, typically their first question or concern in terms of finding modern love?
It's in a couple of different groups of questions or challenges that people are facing. One of them is, how do I do? In concrete terms, because often we tend to feel quite impatient. Once you've made a decision, you want things to happen. And that's where I tell people that modern love is very much about you. It's the most about you that you will ever do, because you need to listen to yourself. You need to use those things that you hear and that you feel as a compass in your future love life. So it does take some time. You need to be able to actually work with yourself, not for years, but for a period of time, in order to actually start feeling better about your love life. or getting a better love life? So that's one sort of questions. Another sort of questions is, well, I am very excited about this, of maybe having more than one partner. When I wrote my book, One Woman, Three Men, and it came out, people wanted to talk to me on one-on-one. I got calls all the time from many people, also people I didn't know, who invited me out for lunch or for coffee or for a walk, because they really felt like sharing their experiences with having had more than one partner at the same time. And that's why when I found out that it was actually quite of a taboo. People were not freely talking about this. Some of these people that I never met them, and that was before I started working as a love coach. They just wanted really to talk to somebody whom they believed was not going to be condescending or going to put a sort of degrading etiquette on them. And I wasn't, because for me it was really, I felt very grateful and enjoyed that they felt confidence in me enough to share some very intimate experiences. So a number of people are very curious about knowing more about living with more than one partner. And afterwards I started interviewing people who live with more than one partner, because I felt that I didn't know enough. So I've interviewed a number of couples about how it is and read books about it and so on. And there's quite a lot of, there are a number of different distinctions and so on. And once again, if you decide that you want to have more than one partner, it's also something that you should give yourself time to develop into. Give yourself time to actually feel what feels good for you. Because there may be one model that many people are using, but it might not be the model that actually fits you. So giving yourself time to feel where you're at and who you are and what you're dreaming of is once again very, very relevant. The love compass that I was talking about before.
You mentioned your book. Let's kind of go back to the beginning, because a lot of people are meeting you for the first time, especially in America. And what was it about your personal you to decide, hey, I'm going to try a new model? I'm going to look for not just one man, but three.
Yeah, well, I had very, very frustrating love life. I had been married to a guy who was quite hot-tempered, and that didn't work out. We had a child together, but we got divorced, and I felt I felt like a fiasco. I felt very low about that and very bad about that. But we couldn't make it work. And then some months later, 9 months later, I met a new guy, and he was a complete opposite of my husband, or ex-husband by then. And I was with him for a year, and then he left me. And I was like, I was devastated in my life, because I felt, okay, I can't make it work with this guy who's hot-tempered and very fierce, and I can't make it work with his absolute contrary, who's very nice and considerate and a very kind person. And I was like, what is wrong with me? But then I said, well, maybe I am mixing. I feel like I don't know. I can't feel myself. I don't know what is happening. I don't know where I'm at, and what should I look for now? Should I look for another completely other type of man, or? Mm-hmm. And then I said, okay, I'll try this online dating, and then I started filling out this profile, and then I made all these answers. There are many answers. And one of them is, for instance, that you need to be quite specific about what kind of sex life you're looking for. And that was not something I was used to telling people that I didn't know what kind of sex life I was into. So that took quite also some weeks or days when I was thinking about this and saying, okay, well, what should I write? What am I actually looking for? And that was, it was interesting. It started to become quite interesting to fill out this profile. And then when I had made this list of, what can I actually use a man for, I had 26 points, I figured, okay, 26 is too many. Can I group these into some joint areas? And then I found out that there were actually 3 areas, and one was a guy to talk with, and the other was a guy to have sex with regularly, fun sex and experimental sex, where we could explore our different passions and curiosities. And then I also needed help in my home. And then when I sat there with a dating site, I was like, hey, maybe I should separate these 3 and look for 3 men instead. Because in that way I can be a little like a researcher and try to identify where do the problems come up. Like, is it with the guy I'm talking to? Is it with a sex guy? Can they merge? Should I make them merge? Should I say, no, it has to be separate roles? There was a lot of more possibilities for me to play with the whole love thing than there was if I was just sitting there and trying to find the one and only at this website. So I uploaded a profile looking for 3 men. One to talk to, one for sex, and one for practical stuff. So that was what started it all.
And ultimately, what did you learn? Obviously you found a new partner, but what were some of the things that this model allowed you to learn about yourself?
Well, you could say that I felt quite powerful when I started dating like this, because I had changed the fundamentals of the dating game. I was not looking to fulfill one man's needs. I was asking 3 men to fulfill my needs. And I've talked to many women about this since, also women that I've coached. And quite a number of women today, even though we have a very liberated life and we have our own career and we can be single moms and so on, a number of women find it challenging to actually set the pace and set the agenda and be the very the person who takes the initiative and sets up the whole thing. And so that was very liberating for me to do that. It was also liberating to actually just meet guys and say, yeah, I'm looking for a sex partner. So within 1 to 2 months, I went from not being able to define at all what kind of sex I was looking for, because I had never talked about it or been specific about it in sort of a lot of boxes and words I had to attribute to my sex life in this dating profile. So I wasn't used to that, and then I got used to talking about it and also pursuing some of the things that I found interesting or fun, or sometimes it didn't work out at all, but other times it was some great experiences. So those 2 were things. I also was quite surprised by the number of nice guys I met online, and also for dates, but guys who were like saying, hey, that's a fun model. Why did you think of that? And what do you want with it? And, who seemed genuinely curious about my project. And you can imagine that having just come out of 2 wrecked relationships, I was quite vulnerable. So I appreciated being met by genuine curiosity. And but this was all things that kind of happened, over the first 3 to 6 months. I also had much higher quality dates, because once I went out on a date with one of these guys, I told the guys, that when they answered my profile, they said, a large number of them said, well, you're really lucky because I'm a 3-in-1. And I said, well, I'm not interested. I want you to choose one of the 3 areas in order to go on a date with me. And then some just immediately chose whatever, said, okay, yes, sex, and I want this type of thing. Or No, well then let's start by talking, or I'm ready to be your handyman. But you know, some of the, where was I? Yeah, well, you know, they were trying to actually give me good feedback, and I enjoyed that very much. And then when it was about going out on a date. Then when I ended up going out on dates with these guys who had to choose one of the three areas, we were immediately having an interesting talk. You know, otherwise it can be sometimes it's a little awkward, it's a little embarrassing, it's a little weird, you know, because you're meeting each other and you have the kind of agenda, okay, are we going to make out or are we not going to make out? But here it was a very good and funny way of starting a conversation. So the quality of the dates that I went on was much higher than the dates I had gone on before this model.
Your book did very well in your home country of Denmark. Why were you so compelled to bring these concepts and ideas to America?
Well, I think that a book like mine can contribute to actually reduce the number of double standards that exist in our love life today. And I think I've been to the States many times. I've traveled around to 36 different states, and I've met many Americans. Also, many people who are concerned with the fact that it's so difficult to maneuver in your love life and actually feel good about whatever steps you're taking. So I figured, well, once that I've done Denmark, and I did that when the book came out there, I wanted to go to America. That was my dream. I was interested in getting the conversation going about sex and love and relationship and expectations and so on, because I think we need that. And I think we need it in a lot of Western countries, because we're still, guilt and shame and so on still play far too great a role, much greater role than I would have imagined that it's still playing. So I want to contribute to minimizing that. And I think my novel is a very good starting point. I think also a novel is a good way to start, because you can read it and it's just a story. And then you can decide for yourself, okay, this was a fun story, but where does it take me? Would I like to try to have more than one partner? Would I like to have maybe even a polyamorous relationship where I have more partners at the same time who are intimate? Or am I actually living the love life that I long for? And I think it is a gradual process, but I think it's great to take a starting point in a fiction story based on real events, and then to follow your own inclinations and emotions about where you want to go.
And I guess the question I really wanted to ask you is, what is it that you see specifically in America where you know they need the modern love concepts and principles? Are these things that you've observed just about American culture from your time spent here? Or have you just been able to compare and contrast how people love in America versus how people love in Europe? What was it that kind of let you know for sure that you needed to bring these concepts across the ocean to the US?
Well, I think, first of all, what I have seen when I've traveled through the States is that there are many Americas. I think it is, I don't want to just say that there's one culture, one identity, or one issue in terms of love. But I think there is a shortage of people feeling sure about themselves in their love life and in their sex life, unless it is according to culture's narrow norms. And I think a number of people are exploring modern love and have done so for years, but it is still not part of, how should I say, the accepted norms. and I want to contribute to it being more okay to talk about these things. You know, I think there is still a dominance of some ideals from the 1950s, where you meet a high school sweetheart and you stay together until death do us part. And I think when we look at the way people are actually behaving, that's not the case. You know, there is a lot of adultery, there is a lot of divorces, and there are a lot of people who feel really unhappy. And I want to actually offer my help to people who feel unhappy and tell them, well, you know, if you sit down, if you say, stop the boat, stop the race, I'm not gonna continue striving for this thing that apparently is the only thing in culture. I want to define my own road and then start traveling on that. I think that I know that it can help many people to have a much better love life than they have today. I've helped people here in Denmark, and I've helped myself, and I know some of the actually simple steps to take, but still complex. So, but I would like to share my knowledge about that.
Pauline, we actually have a question.
Yes.
And the question is, I am a recent divorcee who is frightened and scared about getting back out in the dating world. What can I do to find a loving, committed partner again?
Well, first of all, ask yourself if you are prepared to go on 20 dates before you meet somebody that you even feel like kissing. Because my experience is that after a divorce, it's the first steps out into the dating world can be really difficult, because you are so influenced by the experience, the bad experiences you've just had. You feel vulnerable, and you also want to actually quickly land in another relationship. But if you can give yourself a little more time and a little more space for yourself in defining your love compass, I'm sure that you will be able to actually do it in a different way than you did last time. And I think it was Einstein who said, you know, if we continue to do something in the same way, of course, we will get the same result. We need to start doing things in different ways to get a different result.
What's the number one thing that when you are coaching people and you are working with, whether they're couples or single people, what is you see people either do trouble grasping on their way to modern love?
I meet a lot of people who find it harder than they imagined to actually respect themselves. They want to do things differently, and they try, and then they fall back in the habitual ways of doing things. And then they scold themselves and say, yeah, you're no good, you know, see what happened, now you did it again, and you know, it's really not interesting, this is not working. So, you know, I'm urging people to be merciful towards themselves, to be nice to yourself, because what you're endeavoring to do is to actually take a different step and a very important step for yourself. So if you're very impatient about it, and if you're just, you know, criticizing yourself the first time you actually, you know, fall back into your old pattern, your old habits, then it's difficult for you. So be merciful on yourself. And also, once you're out of a divorce, you know, it's really difficult, or it's really important to be also there, trying to give yourself a little something nice every day, a little pat on the shoulder, a little saying, hey, well, at least I smiled today because the sun struck me and it felt nice to have warmth on my cheeks. Or I talked to this nice salesperson, or hey, I actually woke up today and I wasn't crying. You know, there are many different steps that you can take in order to be a little more merciful on yourself. But that is some of the one of the major areas that I work a lot with people, that is, we're so self-critical, we're so blaming ourselves all the time. And that's not a good way to move forward, especially when you want to change things and do things in a different way, because that is a change.
And Pauline, I asked kind of like, what's the number one thing you notice? I guess I'm also curious, is there a difference between how people approach dating and finding the United States, Europe?
Well, yes, I would say, Europe is also a lot of countries, so there are differences. But the impatience, that is the same. I meet that both here in Denmark, where I've done love coaching for some years, and I'm sure I'm also going to meet it in the States. The preliminary reactions that I've had by some of the people who read my book as well. Oh, but I'm so impatient. So I know that is a fact. And then also people are worried about, well, what are other people going to think? Can I just do this? What are other people maybe going to think, that I'm, weird, or have lost it, or I'm a bit crazy, or something like that. And that's another thing that I spent quite some resources on in the coaching. That is to make you feel good about yourself, because most of the time people are so busy thinking about themselves that they're not thinking about what you do or what you don't do. And there's no need for you to, start by going out and telling everybody about what you want, that now you want to revolutionize your love life and have more partners or do whatever you want to do. You can start by having it as a private project, and then you can open it up to friends, and then you can open it up to more people. Because that's another thing I've found, that is that once people find out that they're not the only one having this urge or having this need for a more coherent and deep and intense love life, once they find out that other people are there as well looking for it, then they're like, oh wow, that's so great, and then you can start feeling all exhilarated and all happy about it, and that's a very good starting point for starting the dating.
Pauline, we have another question. Yes. And it's from a mom, and she's saying, hi Pauline, I would like to try your 1 woman 3 men model. However, I am a mom to 2 girls, and I'm curious, how can I embark on 3 men, but also politely or non-invasively introduce these partners to my daughters?
Well, I was a single mom myself, and I have talked to a number of single moms, and I believe that it is not a good idea to introduce partners to your children too early. You should have a sort of relationship with a person before you introduce them to your children. I would also say it depends on the age of the children, and if she has, here in Denmark we have a lot of people have 1 week with a mom and then 1 week with a dad. So if that is the case, then she should use her free week to have the experiments with men. And then maybe when the children are there, lower the level of activity, maybe one night go out and have a babysitter look after the children, or something like that, so that you don't have to mix everything. It doesn't get better by mixing everything, because what you do is you mix everybody's expectations, and the risk of everything failing or going bad is much bigger than everything becoming a success. Well, what I did in terms of my book was that my daughter was 13 when my book came out. And I was aware that I was going to get quite a lot of, or I was hoping I was going to get quite a lot of PR on it. And I did. I was in, on TV and radio and newspapers and magazines. And but I told her before the book came out, I said to her that I had written a book for grown-ups, and that I didn't want to talk with her about it, and I didn't want her to watch me on TV or listen to me on the radio or read the articles. And if she met anybody who talked about the book, then she should just say, well, you know, it's my mom. She has this project and my mom is a bit crazy. And I did that on purpose because I wanted her to be able to kind of put a distance to what I was doing. Because what I was doing was a grown-up thing. And I didn't feel she should be involved in it. And she's now 18, and I have talked with her about it once and told her a little more about the book. But you know, it's my project, it's not hers. And she shouldn't sort of pay the price for it. In the beginning, you know, she didn't talk in school with anybody about it. But then when she got older, some of her friends thought that she had a quite cool mom. So, of course, I like that. But, you know, it was a grown-up project. And I think also when you start to experiment with love, it's important to have barriers actually separating one from the other.
And to something you just mentioned about, you know, kind of putting this aside from your child, from what is the right age to embark on this one woman, three men model? Is this something that could work if you're a relatively young lover who's had success? Or is this something that is more geared toward, has tried different relationships and failed, is looking for something different?
Well, I think it is something you can do whenever you feel, okay, now I need to try something else. You may have had not enough experiences, or you may have had some bad experiences, or you may have a relationship where you're bored and you're like, okay, I really need to do something about this because I'm not satisfied. You know, I like that people don't just accept whatever comes and, you know, slumps in the sofa and has another glass of wine or beer or something, you know, to doze off from reality. I like that you take yourself seriously and say, hey, this is not good enough. I want more. And if you want more and you're prepared to actually challenge yourself and sort of, you know, go into your own expectations, your own habits, your own the way you're wired. If you're prepared for that, well, then you can start with this model at any age. I just had a fan mail from a 70-year-old woman a couple of months ago, and I was like, well, go ahead, you know, feel free to use it. So I think any age is fine. It depends on where you are at with your love life.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Pauline. This was incredibly informative.
Good. Well, I'm happy. I'm happy you liked it. And, you know, check out my website, modernloveandsex.com. There will be more information there. I will soon publish the first chapter of the book so you can see what it's about. And you can also follow the events that are in the making for my book tour in the US in March and April. So thank you very much.